Hello guys, today we will be making this interact dot, which changes the name and the icon depending on the item you're looking at. And you can also choose where you want this icon, this interact prompt to display. So in this door example, we only want it to appear when we look over the doorknob section. So I've broken down this into two parts. The first part will be just the basic interact dot and setting up the item informations, and in the second part we will be covering the changing of the name and the icon. So yeah, let's begin. Okay, so let's start by going to the content folder, and we'll right click, create a new folder, call it widgets. Inside that, create another folder, call it HUD for heads up display, and right click and search for widget blueprint and user widget, call it WBP HUD, and you can duplicate this, rename that one to WBP interact dots. So this interact dot will live inside the HUD, and in the future, if you want to make another widget for the HUD, say like the health bar or the sprint bar, so both of these will live inside this one widget. Okay, so we need the images now for the interact dot, so we can right click, create another folder, call it images, and head over to flaticon.com, and you can say search hand, and we will be using something like this for the items that you can interact with. And make sure you check the licenses on this website if you want to use any of these in your projects. So I've got a few already downloaded. So today we'll be using this one and this one, and plus this white circle which I made, and I'll leave a link for this one in the description. So if they show up like this in the preview image, just double click them, they should show up just fine. So this is what you actually get. Okay, so head over to the WBP HUD, double click that, and let's add a canvas panel. And inside that canvas panel, let's add our interact dots, just like that. And make sure you select this and you set the anchor to full screen and reset the offsets to 0. And compile and save. Okay, so now head over to the interact dots, and in here we'll add another canvas panel. And inside this canvas panel, we will add a image. Let's name this to img default dot, and set the anchors to the center, reset this position, and change the alignment to 0.5, 0.5, so you can center it. And for now, let's change the size to something like, we'll just do 30 and 30, something like that. Okay, so let's change the image now to the white circle. So under appearance, change the brush to the white circle. So we get something like this. Okay, so now let's add this interact dot into the player's view. So head over to the player character, the third person character. And these are from the previous tutorials, which we will be using this line trace later on in the tutorial. But for now, what I like to do is select all the default nodes, right click and collapse them. Let's rename this to default nodes. So yeah, this just makes things a bit neater. So from here, we will make a custom event. We'll call it begin setup event. And from here, let's create, first let's drop a sequence node. So in case we need to set up other things, but for now, we just need to create our widget and select our WBP HUD. And from the return value, let's add this one to the viewport. And in the default nodes, under the event begin play, make sure you call that. Yep. So compile and save. And let's test that out. And there you go, we have our dot. But let's take down the opacity. So in the interact dot, select the image, and I already searched it here, render opacity. Let's set that to 0.25. And there you go, it's slightly more see-through now. Okay, so now we need to create the item that the character can interact with. So in the content folder, create a new folder, call it interact. And inside this one, right click blueprint class of actor, call it BP base item. And double click that. Okay, so inside here, let's add a cube. And let's call it base mesh. And let's make that the new scene root by dragging it above. Compile. And let's add that to our scene. Okay, so back in the third person character, we'll take this function which I created in the previous tutorial called line trace. I'll leave a link in the description for how to create this. Or you can go to this link that I'll also provide, which has the copy of this function. So from here, you need the event tick node. And before that, let's add a sequence node in case we need other events on this tick. So we've already created this interact distance, which has a default value of 250. And if you don't have that already, you can just drag off here, promote to variable, and name it interact distance. But we will use the one that we've already created. So plug that into here. And let's leave the spread at 0 and change the draw debug type to duration. And let's just test it. Yep. So when this thing hits this box, we want the item information to be displayed and also the interact dot to change. So from this line trace, let's drop a branch node. So that was B, left click and connect the did hit to the condition. And from out hit, let's break hit results. And so what we'll use is from the hit actor, we search does implement interface. And so we haven't created it yet, but we will create an interface. So if this object has this interface, it will display that interact dot. So let's connect this one to the condition, and from true to this branch. So let's head over to the interact folder. So we will right click and search blueprint interface, and let's name it BPI interact. So in this interface, it will hold all the functions that that anyone who implements this interface can use. So let's call the first one get item info, and let's create a new function, call it interact, compile and save, and go over to your base item under class settings. In interfaces, implemented interface, we will add the BPI interface interact. And over on the left side, we see the two events that we just created. So if we double click this, when something calls this function, it will execute this. But for now, we will be using this item information. So let's add that in the third person. So add here the interact interface. So for now, if it's true, let's just print the string. Let's say can interact. And if it's false, doesn't do anything. So let's test this out. Compile and save. And so if you walk up and hit this item here, you can see on the left side it's printed can interact, just like that. So actually back in the base item, double click that. We need a few variables like the item name and the interact icon type. So instead of creating multiple variables down here, we will make a structure. So we can right click here and write structure. And so this will just be a list of variables. We call it st for structure item. So st item. Double click that. So maybe we want the interact type. So this will be a enumeration, which we will create later. So let's just add two more variables. Let's call it item name. Oops. And the next variable will be item description. And we will be adding more to this later on, but for now let's just use these three. Change the item name to text, and item description can be string. Yeah, let's save that, and let's set the interact type to, so we need to create a enumeration here. We'll call it interact type. So in here will just be a list of like a list of names for the, so we can change between the interact dots. So let's just have one for default. We'll have one for basic interact or use. So that will use that hand, and this one will be the pickup. So in that structure here, let's put that enumeration interact type. Oops, interact type. Yep. So back into the base item, we can add that structure now. Call it st item. And let's search that here. St item. Yep. Compile and save. And here on the right side in the drop down menu, so depending on what icon we want to display for this item, we can change it here. And we'll say the item name, we'll just call it default item. Give it a description as well. this is the base item description, and make sure you turn on instance editable and expose on spawn. So for example, if we had 2 boxes, we can select here in the details panel under the default ST item. So we can change this one to pickup and this one to use. And let's change this name to second item. This is the second item. Okay, so now these 2 cubes have different information, and so when we hit it like this, we will display the different information. Okay, so that's the end of part 1. In the second part, we will be implementing the name changing and the icon changing. So I'll leave a link for that video in the description, and I hope to see you guys there. Bye!